Hey guys, this is Mike Jones, and this is probably going to be a long race, but if you want to see what everybody's stats were, um, this is what this is going to be. We're going to look through the stats, see who is the best at what, who is the worst at what, and obviously some things don't matter. And it's in actually alphabetical order, just because that made it easier for me. 60 cars involved too. This is crazy. But anyway, the only ones that aren't going to matter is Speedway, short track, and road course. Qualifying very barely matters. So I would assume all those don't really matter. This guy has some decent stats. Remember, it was random from 45 to 95. And let's see, this is Drizzy Allen, who he did make the main event, but I think he fell off the draft. So he might be a little bit of a slower car. I would assume he's about a 40th place car out of the 60 cars. So let's see how he was. He's got 95 at qualifying, but like I said, qualifying doesn't really matter. And this might be where he got hurt the most. Super Speedway 63 and 55. That's 63 is very low when 45 is the lowest. 63 is pretty low on the end. I would say if you grade it from like 90s are an A, 80s are a B, 70s are a C. That's like a D at Super Speedway Racing. And everything else was eh. I mean, his consistency was awful too. So we should have seen him go all over the place, but we didn't. Finishing wasn't too bad, and aggressive. I mean, it was a C, so it was like average. Aggressive, he was a little aggressive. This might be where it hurt him the most. Aerodynamics were low, and all this. I don't think I can go this slow with 60 cars. So yeah, let's just go see what his best was qualifying, which doesn't really matter. And his worst is 49 engine. Okay, that's why. That is why. Engine very matters here. So that is why he struggled. He had an overall good driver ratings, but yeah. Next is Aileen, who blew an engine, and I don't know how. Well, his engine is all over the place, 56 to 91. But his best is tied, 91 chassis and engine. That's a really good car. But his worst looks like is 47. Pit crew doesn't matter at all either. Aerodynamics. So that's probably why he was all over the place too, is because he had a good engine but bad aerodynamics. Both of those matter. Baramida, he's another one that struggled and fell off the draft a lot, and it looks like it's because of aerodynamics. Looking at this right now. 95, he was a 95 at consistency. He was very consistent, it looks like, and his worst is 46 at chassis, which is like your grip and stuff, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, grip level. So it might have taken him a little bit longer to take off and all that. Connor Brenton in the 52. He had a 93 at chassis, so that's pretty good grip. He made the main event. And let's see, 47, his worst was aggression. So that might have been his falling point, is he didn't make enough passes. Or didn't go for it enough, not enough blocking, all that good stuff. K.A. Bullets. He is a 94 at chassis, and Speedway doesn't matter, so 94 at chassis, so that's another really good grip level. And then, I think this is me proving that my guy Mike Jones didn't have boosted stats. Like, I literally randomized it. I don't even know who was better anywhere else. It looks like 45 Super Speedway, and that's probably why Bullets didn't make the main event. Coda Butcher, he didn't make the main event because he crashed. I think he was a fast car in the B main. And it looks like his best stat was engine at 93, and his worst was 46 at finishing. Yikes. Even though his finishing was a 91. Maybe your worst is actually your max. Maybe that's what I should look at, is max. He had a very bad chassis. So Cappy Sonata was a 90 at engine. Wow, that's pretty good. But he didn't have a very good road course car. That doesn't matter. He doesn't have a very good aerodynamics. So that probably hurt him. He did make the main event, though, but he almost got turned like twice. And yeah, his aerodynamics and chassis were pretty bad down here. Also, then we got Jojo Carter. This video is going to be way too long. Oh my gosh. I don't even know if anyone's going to want to watch this, but yeah. This is just me showing off stats, I guess. Aerodynamics was a 91, yet he had a 46 in Super Speedway. Castillo, he had a 95 in Super Speedway. Wow, that's pretty good. Yet only 47, yikes, and chassis with 50. Good thing chassis doesn't matter as much because it's grip level. Once you're up to speed, I don't think grip matters too much, but it still should help. But I believe this also helps your grip. Overall performance on oval 2.5. Yeah, it doesn't really tell you, but I believe it's grip, like it's a traction type of thing. But yeah. Anyway, this is Collins, Mitch Collins. He was good at finishing. I don't remember where he finished in the main race, but I'm pretty sure that actually is true. Yet he struggled, it looks like, with his engine and finishing. Okay, his best and worst stat was finishing. So he finished all over the place, who knows. Vincent David wrecked in the B main. I feel bad for him. He had a fast car in that B main too. No 90 stats for him. Everybody else has an... Oh yeah, he does Super Speedway. Looks like everybody has at least 190 stat. And he was a pretty even car. No 40 stats either. He was almost right in the middle. I can't believe it. Aerodynamics kind of struggled, especially with the 60 there. Oh my gosh, look at that. I only went through like 10 people. I don't even know how long this was. I'm sorry if you guys didn't want to watch this. You don't have to, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people just want to see the stats. Aggression for Henson, 91, and his worst was 47 consistency. That explains his inconsistency, even though it's Daytona. 93 for, this is Harry Edwards. 93 was his best at finishing, and his worst 40, road course doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. 45 at engine. Okay, so that kind of hurt. Jensen Freddy, who I believe finished last out of the people that were still able to win or drive. No, he wasn't last. But he did struggle in the B main. He was in the back. He might have one of the worst stat cars. It looks like he has a 93 speed. That doesn't matter. He has a 92 finishing. But finishing doesn't matter if you're not up front or up, at least in the main race. What was his worst stat? He had 45 on reliability and engine. I have no idea how his car didn't quit on him with having one of the worst reliabilities and the worst engine. That's not cool. Gardner was a very strong car. He had a 95 on Super Speedway, and that was his best. His worst 45 on consistency. That is true. He was all over the place. Kyle Guess. In the 75, let's see, 95 at finishing, and 50 is his worst. That's chassis. Connor Brenton, I don't even remember where this guy finished, but he did make the main event. He had a 91 in aerodynamics and chassis, and that doesn't matter. That was the only 40. Holy crap, he had a better car than should have had. He should have did better. 51 at finishing. Okay, his finishing wasn't too good, but still. Callie Hancock, probably the worst luck out of the entire series because they don't make, I mean, their second heat race, they don't even get to start, and then they get wrecked in the B main with it not even being their fault. They could have a better car than what happened. Aerodynamics, finishing actually, 95, and 49 for the engine, so the engine struggled. Joshua Harrison in the 4 made the A main easily. And he has a 95 aerodynamics, which is probably the most important. And then 45 aggression. So he wasn't aggressive. That explains it. Austin Higgins. He had to transfer over from the B main. And, excuse me. His finishing was a 92. So he was a really good finishing. That explains probably how he got to the front of that B main. Having not so good of a car, it looks like, and his aerodynamics struggled, which I think is the most important. What does it say? Slip through the air, minimum drag. Higher aero means less drag, which translates to more speed. Yeah. And Daytona, you're full throttle the whole time. Robert Hooks Jr. almost came away with a win, I believe. His strongest was a 91 at Super Speedway. Okay, and 46 at reliability. Somehow his car didn't fall apart. Who is this? CJ Ickery. Reliability. I don't know why I said reliability. 94 qualifying, which really doesn't matter. So 91 at aerodynamics. That's pretty good. 45 at reliability. Another guy's car somehow didn't fall apart. ESIP in the 10. He made the main event, but he wasn't competitive in the main event at all. He lost the draft at the beginning. Yeah, with the pack of like 4 cars that also lost the draft. Um, so I don't know why he wasn't very competitive. His chassis wasn't very good. No stats in the 90s. He had an 87 was his best at super speedways, and his worst was a 45 at reliability. That sucks. Andy John Lott. This is another bad luck, guys. He got turned in a heat race that caused a caution, and then he got turned after a caution in the main event, which maybe made him pit. I don't know. But he had a 90 chassis, and that was his best stat. His worst was... Don't tell me it's chassis. No, it's not. That doesn't matter. Yeah, it is. It's chassis. His worst is chassis. So he had a best and worst chassis. That makes sense. Janela Jones in the 21 car. Best stat doesn't matter there. Aerodynamics. Whoa, very good aerodynamics. 93 and 95. Wow. I think that's probably the best aerodynamics by far, unless somebody got a 95, but that's pretty rare. Or extremely rare, really. This is really rare. Worst stat engine. Okay, so the engine countered the aerodynamics. If they would have had a good engine, they would have been unstoppable with that good of aerodynamics. Morgan Jones, somebody who made the A main from last place starting position out of the B main. I want to say this person's consistency had to be all over the place, which it was. Very good aggression, and worst stat looks like possibly aerodynamics and consistency. So that explains why they struggled to keep up with the draft. Connor Jones in the 60 car, his best stat was aggression with 94, and his worst stat was consistency at 45. Mike Jones in the 8, this is the one you guys have probably been waiting for. I have no idea what it is. 95 aerodynamics, so that explains it. Aerodynamics were... Oh, but that's a pretty big gap, so I would assume that it picked a high number a lot of times. Maybe that's why I won those races. I also have a good chassis and a good engine. Holy crap. Wow, all 90s. That explains it. What else? Worst stat. Wow. Okay, maybe I do have the best. My worst stat's qualifying. That doesn't really matter. The next worst stat is consistency at 59. That explains a lot. Wow, how did my car not win? It was definitely the best so far, I believe. Next, Mcmichael. He did not make the A main event. 91 engine. That's a really good engine, but is also probably his worst point. No, 48 qualifying. That doesn't matter. Consistency and engine are his downsides. That's almost everybody. I'm going through this a little faster than I thought I would. Let's see here. This is Leo Lammy in the 95. 95 aerodynamics. Really good aerodynamics, actually. Wow. And his worst stat is a 47 at consistency. Oh, no, 46 at reliability. That's worse. Just Liam in the 22. Best stat, 92, I believe. Yes, in the chassis. And worst stat is 55, 51. That doesn't matter. 55. Consistency and aerodynamics were his worst stats. Mike Maff in the 9 cars. Best stat was a 94. No, road course doesn't matter. Was a 92 chassis, and his worst was finishing and qualifying. Wow. He sucks at starting and finishing the race, but he's good in between, apparently. Lawrence Maga. Whew, okay, let's see. 95 at aggression. I think that's true. I think he's the one that almost turned somebody, so that makes sense. And his worst stat is 47 at finishing. Keith Martin in the 98. He seemed like he was just an average driver. He made the main event pretty easily, but I don't know if he did much in it. And that doesn't matter. His best stat was a 90 engine, and his worst stat, 46 consistency and 46 super speedway. Brian Martinez in the 2 had probably a very rough car, as he struggled a lot, I believe. He didn't make the main event. Let's see here. His best stat was finishing, if he could actually get with the draft, it looks like. But it was also probably his worst stat. No. 45 aerodynamics. That's not very good aerodynamics. J.D. Mcmichael in the 81. Best stat. Wow, this guy's best stat was 90 at Super Speedway. I almost didn't even have a 90. Wow. Worst stat consistency. DJ McMurray in the 18. Best stat was no, that doesn't matter. 93 at consistency, and his worst stat was a 46 at aerodynamics. That explains why he did not make the main event, I believe. Jordan Mendoza made the main event. 92 engine, is that his best stat? No, it is not. 95 qualifying, 93 finishing, so he had a really good start to finish. In fact, I think he finished pretty good at the end of the race in the main event. Worst stat, wow, he doesn't really have that bad of a worst stat. 50 at chassis. He should have did better then, I think. AJ Mullis in the 30 car. His engine blew. I don't know how good he would have done. He was mid-pack when his engine blew in the main event. His best stat looks like it's a 93 Super Speedway, 93 consistency. Worst stat is, that doesn't matter, 45 aggressions. That was his downside, was aggression. It looks like Billy Nativillo. 95 Super Speedway, and short track doesn't matter. Wow, not too bad of worst stats actually. Chassis was his worst stat. Okay, he should have did a little better than that. Holden Newberry, who I thought was actually going to win the race. He had a 94 aerodynamics. That was his best stat. And a 90 engine, so that explains it. 45 engine to 49 engine is his worst stat. Diego Nunez. 93 reliability, and that, I don't know. He should have made the main event. He barely missed it by like 1 point, so he had to go to the B main. Then he barely missed it, making the A main by like 3 positions or something. So he just is the Mr. I barely miss it kind of a come up close kind of a guy. And his worst stat is 51 in aerodynamics and reliability. And we only have a couple. Oh my gosh, that's a lot more left. Never mind, I'm not close to being done. Mangus Olaf in the 88. Best stat, 95 in reliability. Worst stat is... wow. Can I, like, you know... My brain's farting, I guess. Worst stat, chassis. Orth. He made the main event. His best stat, 91 consistency. And worst stat, 45 Super Speedway. Samet Ozkin also made the main event. 94 Super Speedway. And worst stat, 45 reliability. Somehow his car didn't blow up on him, I guess. Pierce Peralta. He won a heat race and he made the main event. 90 Super Speedway, 90 engine, 93 actually aerodynamics is his best stat. And it looks like 48 chassis is his worst. Tim Pitch, this is your winner. Probably has the best stats. Let's compare him to Mike Jones, who didn't even have one in the 40s. He does have a lot in the 40s actually. His best stat was a 94 in the chassis department. Maybe chassis does matter at Daytona. I didn't think it did. 46 at finishing. What? How did he win the race? How did he win the race with probably the worst finishing? The ability to finish a race well. Drivers with higher finishing will get stronger as the race nears the end. What? How did he hold on? Reliability also was bad. Wow. Somehow he still wins it. Ream did not make the main event. 93 aggression and 46 aerodynamics. Justin Ricci. This is a 92 finisher. I guess finishing doesn't matter as much at Daytona as I thought, because they just proved it with probably the worst finishing car won the race. That's crazy. The worst finishing car finished the best out of 60 people. That's crazy. By the way, Riki had a 45-inch chassis. I think if I do this again and we have more, I'm going to have even a bigger gap. What I really wanted to do was have a 0 to 100, but it made the racing spread out too much. So I decided to go 45-95, which ended up being pretty decent. I think the races turned out decent. I don't know how crashes didn't happen. This is Brian Rodriguez in the 20 car, 93 chassis, and qualifying doesn't really matter. Oh my gosh. That doesn't really matter either. Super Speedway. Holy cow. Super Speedway was low. That probably hurt him a little bit. He made the main event though. TD Rutherford. He was up there a lot on the main event. 95 chassis and worst 45 consistency. Sykes in the 52 did not make the main event. I don't remember if they were close and just barely didn't make it. I can't remember now. But 95 consistency, which is really good. And let's see, 49 finishing, 49 super speedway. Or just regular speedway, that didn't matter. Max Sterling, his best stat looks like it's consistency with a 93, and his worst stat is a 40. Qualifying doesn't really matter. What else? He had some 53s in aggression, and in reliability was pretty bad. Nick Tabor. Tabor had a 93 engine and a 93 qualifying. Doesn't really matter. Road course doesn't matter. He had a 48 reliability car. Only a couple left, guys. Tabor had a 90 finishing, or 93 aggression, and wow, 47 is his worst aerodynamics, or TAPA. Gosh, I'm getting tired. It's late. It's like what time is it? It is almost 3 a.m. and it's my day off, so I'm tired, even though I work at night. Brendan Taylor is, his best is 91 speedway, and his worst is 45 aerodynamics. Brandon Tharp, he didn't make the main event. Barely. I think he missed it by one position, if I remember correctly. He would have been good if we were on short tracks. He actually had his best stat. Wow, he was a 90-90 super speedway. But I think his car let him down. Reliability wasn't very good. Yeah, his other stats were in. Tyler Tingley. This guy. 94 super speedway was his best, his worst. Did he not make the main event? He didn't because he was in a wreck, huh? That he might have caused. And what was his worst stat? 51, no, 52. Speedway. So his best and worst were both super speedways. Prince William in the 24 made the main event easily. 95 consistency and 49 worst aerodynamics. Then last, Oliver Zabrowski. 95 chassis, which is pretty good. He did not make the main event though. And wow, 95-95. That is the best chassis in the race for sure. That's the only 95-95 too. And the worst was consistency and reliability, both struggled with. But anyway, guys, that is all of the stats for all 60 cars that were in the race. If you enjoyed stats, I guess hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. If you're new and you're watching this whole video, I'd be very surprised because you'll have no idea what's going on. Just go watch my other videos if this interests you. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time.